Welcome to the behind the scenes look at the worst thing you have ever done film. I'm Havilah Malone. I'm the executive producer and head casting director, and we're here in the studio today with our amazing director, PJ Germain.
Hey.
Hey! We want to understand, we want to get behind the scenes, behind the mind of the director. And first and foremost, we want to know a little bit about you. So tell us a little bit about you. Like, where are you from? How did you get started directing?
I'm originally from New York. So I'm an LA transplant. Where I went to undergrad, we had a film program. And in that program, you had 4 years, but you only got to make 3 movies. And so it was like, you weren't really getting a chance to like practice and fail. And I think that's really important as a filmmaker, is to be able to try things out and fail at it, because you want to be able to know what you did wrong so that you can go on to the next thing and nail it. And so we had a film club, which is called HFC, the Hofstra Filmmakers Club. And that's where pretty much all of the film students at the school would utilize that club to basically try and fail. And so for 4 years, I mean, we were every single weekend making films, you know, whether it's like I was directing or I was DPing or I was editing or I was just on set and I was just helping out.
So getting your hand in different aspects of the filmmaking process.
Yeah. And so through that, I met all of my colleagues that I work with today pretty much, you know, behind the scenes. So our DP, Jeff, I've met him there. He was actually the first person, my first class on the first day of school, I met him. And it was a film class, and so we had to shoot something together. So I've been working with him since the first day of college in 2004.
And literally the director of photography for this film, you met first day of film school.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of where the skill set and the voice started to grow. I mean, I've always wanted to make films. When I was a kid, I was like, had a giant VHS camera. I was like 4 years old trying to hold this thing up and shooting like little movies with my toys, and that just sort of evolved. And then I think at a certain point, you know, when you're a kid, you trying to figure out what you want to do when you get older. And I was from a really small town in upstate New York. I was born in New York City, but then my dad and everybody, we all moved upstate. And so it's this very small town. We were actually like one of the only people of color in the town. So that was a very weird experience growing up.
And did you have many directors that you could draw from or be inspired by that were people of color?
You know, it's weird because I feel like at a certain point, because my dad's a doctor, and so I never got treated differently because of that. But if it weren't that case, if that wasn't the case, or if people didn't know that, that's when I felt like I was being treated differently. And so, for a long time, as weird as it sounds, I think my friends, like I almost felt like a white person, you know, because I'm living in this town. I'm the only person of color in my friend group. And then it wasn't until I like went to college in New York where I realized that wasn't the case. You know what I mean? But in terms of filmmaking, I mean, I was just exposed to everything. You know, my parents loved films growing up. They went to the movies all the time, so that kind of just osmosis into me. I think at a certain point, I didn't think filmmaking was like a viable career, because I didn't really know, in an upstate New York, you don't really know how to get there, you know? And so I had a teacher in high school, senior year, he was the theater arts teacher, he was an English teacher, but I was in his class for theater arts, and I knew he taught film. And so that was the whole reason, like, I wanted to befriend him, I wanted to, like, just stay super tight. And he was the teacher that basically was like, you can do this. Like, if you can, here are the tools that you need, and, you know, and just like editing tools and things like that. Just like very basic things of like, if you want to get started, these are things you need to do. But he's the one that like planted the seed to say, this is possible, and, you know, you should go out and do it if that's what you want. And so that's kind of like how I ended up just pursuing it, like wholeheartedly, you know, no backup plan, just I'm gonna go and I don't care.
Burned all the boats.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm directed.
Yeah, and I've never looked back really. You know, there's no backup plan. There's no fall plan. This has to succeed. You know?
Yes.
Going into my senior year of high school, there was a film that was being made around my hometown, and like family friends knew the director and stuff, and so she was going to hire me as like her assistant for the film. And so I stacked my junior year of high school with every class I needed to graduate, so that by senior year I had basically 3 classes to take, and everything else, 5 periods of the day, were all study halls. And so I had nothing to do for my whole senior year. So like I basically hung out in this teacher's classroom all day long. We talked about film, we talked about theater. I ended up joining theater and acting because he was the director for the theater.
The acting, even the experience acting or the acting background helped you as a director, as well as the help in casting for the film.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's where I started to like realize and understand what a good performance is. You know, it's everyone has a different way of portraying a character, but when you're actually performing as an actor, you understand where a performance is coming from and whether or not it's authentic. And it's either authentic to the character or authentic to the person. And you can always tell if like a character or an actor is drawing from reality and when they're not. And so when it comes to casting, like that was a big thing, is like I wanted to make sure that whoever we casted, there's 8 characters. Some of them had much more screen time than others, but that every single one of them was a viable, plausible person that would exist in this world. And whether like if we went and just decided to go hang out somewhere else, like they were always in character. They were that person. And I think that's, that was my goal going into casting, and I think that's what we ended up with. Every single person is their character. Whether, onset or offset. Especially like with Fran, Emma. Like I remember when we saw her tape, we were like, "That's Fran."
That's her.
And she killed it. I mean, and I said today, like even on Instagram, like that was one of my most memorable casting experiences, was having her keep coming back in the room with different people, because each time she fed off what she was getting, but she also stayed true to how she was performing, and it felt real. And that's exactly what we needed to ground the movie, I think, in making people feel like, these are the characters that they grew up with. These are the people, their friends, these are people that they knew in high school. Because I think that's what makes the film believable.
And speaking of the film, what was it that drew you to this particular film?
I think the script had been floating around for a little bit with Black Castle. There was a couple of people that wanted to make it. And I think what I really liked about it was the third act. I'm a big genre guy. I love the twist. And you don't see it coming. And I think there's like a commercial viability to it where you're like, wow, this is like, out of every short film I've read in the last like 5 or 6 years, this is the one that I could see being like a feature film. If we were to just expand it and keep to the skeleton of what the movie is, like this could be something bigger. That was like the first thing. That was the seed. And then reading it and wanting to understand characters and motivation and like why people were doing this or who this person was, I started to like ask myself a question, is like, if I were going to watch this movie, I would want to care about our main character just a little bit more before things hit the fan. And so that's kind of where, as a director, I'm thinking about, okay, how do we make the audience care more about him? And how do we make the audience hate these other people a little bit more, so that once things start to turn around, it feels like a gut punch to us as the audience, because we weren't expecting.
Walking into a film or into a project, you have a team that you're working with. How important is that team for you in your process?
Having a team, film is collaborative. You can't make a movie by yourself. And so building your team with the right people is like the most important thing, because you need somebody to bounce ideas off of. You can't just kind of live in your head the whole time, or else you'll go crazy. So having the right person as a DP, having the right people as your producers that are there to nurture your vision, but also make sure that you're not like going crazy. You're not like spending money like crazy, but you're also they keep you grounded so that you're focused on the goal, which is to tell the best story you possibly can. And I think what we've done as a team is just that.
And so if you had to give a piece of advice to upcoming directors, what would that piece of advice be?
Like I said earlier, I think it's really important to try things and fail, and not be afraid of failing. And I think a lot of filmmakers, especially now, they don't want to fail. They want to make sure that everything they make is perfect. And I know it's a lot harder as you get older when you're like, okay, well, I don't really have the resources to make 10 short films, but find a core group of people that you can work with that are into your ideas and want to spend a weekend just shooting something and seeing your vision through, and then being able to give yourself to whatever they want to, because whatever group of people you find to work with, you want to be able to continue to work with those people.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us for the behind the scenes with the director, The Worst Thing You've Ever Done. Make sure you check out the film.